Every conversation you have is a rehearsal. The question is whether you're rehearsing the future you want or the one you're afraid of. Most people walk into difficult conversations already defeated. They've played the worst version in their heads so many times that by the time they open their mouth, their voice, posture, and word choice all broadcast a single message: I expect this to go badly. And the other person picks up on that signal faster than you believe. There's a technique that flips this entire dynamic. It comes from a mid-20th century lecturer named Neville Goddard, and the core idea is almost absurdly simple. You enter every conversation as if the outcome you want has already happened. You speak from the end, and the strange part is how reliably it changes what the other person says back to you. Before you dismiss this as magical thinking, stay with the mechanics for a minute. Because the reason it works has less to do with mysticism and more to do with how human beings actually process social signals. When you assume a conversation will go well, your breathing slows, your vocal tone drops into a lower, more confident register. You stop hedging your sentences with qualifiers like, I was just wondering if maybe, and start speaking in clean, direct statements. You hold eye contact a bit longer. You pause before answering instead of rushing to fill silence. Every one of these micro-behaviors changes how the other person perceives you, and perception drives response. Think about the last time someone approached you with absolute certainty that you'd help them. A friend who said, I need you Saturday, instead of, would you possibly be free? If it's not too much trouble, maybe Saturday. The first version assumes the wish fulfilled. The second one begs. Which one did you say yes to? That instinct runs deep. Humans mirror confidence the way they mirror yawns. We orient towards certainty because uncertainty is expensive for the brain to process. When someone across from you has already settled the question internally, your own resistance drops. You start looking for reasons to agree rather than reasons to object. So how do you actually do this in practice? The method has 3 layers, and the deepest one is the part most people skip. The surface layer is language. Before a salary negotiation, instead of mentally rehearsing, I hope they say yes, you shift into, I'm grateful for this raise. Before asking someone on a date, you drop, I wonder if they'll reject me, and move into the feeling of already being with that person. The words you choose in the actual conversation follow from this internal shift. You stop asking permission and start speaking as someone who already has what they came for. But language alone is just performance. The second layer is emotional tone. Goddard was specific about this. He said, you have to feel the reality of the wish fulfilled, because feeling is the secret. When you genuinely occupy the emotional state of someone who already got the outcome, your body chemistry shifts. Your voice carries warmth instead of tension. You lean in instead of bracing. The other person's mirror neurons pick up on this emotional weather and start matching it. Try this yourself. Think of a conversation you're dreading. Now close your eyes for 30 seconds and place yourself in the moment just after that conversation went perfectly. Feel the relief in your shoulders. Feel the lightness in your chest. Notice how your jaw unclenches. That physical state is information your body transmits the moment you walk into the room, and the other person reads it before you say a single word. The third layer is the one that separates people who get results from people who just feel good temporarily. Sustained assumption. 1 30-second visualization before a meeting helps. But Goddard taught something more demanding. He said to live in the assumption continuously, to fall asleep in it, to return to it every time doubt surfaces during the day. Why does duration matter? Because a single moment of assumed confidence gets overwritten by hours of habitual worry. Your default mental state is what shapes your default behavior. If you spend 23 hours anxious and 1 hour visualizing, the anxiety wins. The assumption has to become your resting state, the place your mind returns to when it has nothing else to process. A skeptic would rightly point out that assuming a positive outcome doesn't guarantee one. Sometimes you walk into a negotiation perfectly centered and the other side still says no. That's true, but consider what the assumption actually changes. Even in a rejection, the person operating from the wish fulfilled responds differently. They hear no without collapsing. They ask better follow-up questions. They leave the room with their dignity intact, which means the relationship survives for a future yes. The assumption doesn't control the other person. It controls who you are inside the conversation. And that's the variable with the highest leverage. There's a subtlety here that most people miss when they first try this. The assumption of the wish fulfilled works best when it's quiet, when it's invisible. The moment you start performing confidence, people sense the gap between your words and your energy. You've met someone like this. They say all the right things, their posture looks rehearsed, but something feels off. The words say, "I'm confident." The energy says, "Please believe me." Genuine assumption has no performance in it. You're calm the way someone is calm after receiving good news. There's nothing to prove. You already know the outcome. That absence of effort is what makes it so disarming. People trust it because it doesn't ask to be trusted. Here's where conversations specifically get interesting. Most communication advice focuses on tactics. Say this phrase. Use this body language hack. Mirror their posture. Those tactics work on the surface, but fail under pressure because they're external patches on an internal problem. The assumption of the wish fulfilled works from the inside out. When your internal state shifts, the tactics become unnecessary. You naturally say the right thing because you're speaking from a settled place instead of a desperate one. Consider a job interview. The candidate who assumes they already have the position asks different questions. They inquire about team dynamics, project timelines, company culture. Questions that only matter if you're already planning to be there. The interviewer notices this. Unconsciously, they start treating the candidate as someone who belongs. The conversation becomes collaborative instead of evaluative. Two people solving a logistics problem instead of one person auditioning for the other. Now compare that with the candidate who walks in hoping to impress. Every answer is calibrated for approval. Every question is designed to sound smart. The interviewer feels the weight of that performance and instinctively pulls back. The conversation becomes a test. Same room, same job, same interviewer, different internal state, different conversation entirely. You can apply this to conversations you've been avoiding altogether. The call to a difficult family member, the talk with a partner about something uncomfortable, the request to a friend who you suspect will say no. In each case, the avoidance itself comes from rehearsing the unwanted outcome so thoroughly that the conversation feels pre-lost. Goddard's instruction was to revise. Take the dreaded conversation and replay it in your mind with the ending you want. Watch yourself shaking hands and smiling. Hear the other person saying the words you want to hear. Feel the gratitude in your chest. Then replay it again and again. Each replay overwrites a layer of the old fear-based script until the new version feels more familiar than the dreaded one. This revision technique works because the brain struggles to distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a remembered one. After enough repetitions, your nervous system responds to the upcoming conversation as if it's already gone well. You walk in with the body language of someone returning to a familiar, friendly place rather than someone entering hostile territory. One warning. This practice requires honesty about what you actually want. Many people discover, when they try to assume the wish fulfilled, that they can't clearly picture the outcome. They know what they don't want. They've rehearsed failure in high definition, but the desired outcome is vague, abstract, barely formed. You can't assume something fulfilled if you've never defined what fulfillment looks like. The clarity has to come first. So before your next difficult conversation, sit with one question. If this goes exactly the way I want, what does the moment right after feel like? Get specific. Get physical. Feel it in your hands, your breath, your posture. Then carry that feeling into the room like it already happened. The conversation hasn't started yet, but you've already finished it.